What an interesting test match we just witnessed. I'm referring to the third test between India and Australia at the Gabba. So I'll not go into the scoreline. I know it was a draw. Rain had a big say in the outcome of the match, but I think it was still a very watchable match. And I'll just share a couple of key takeaways from the third match. Coming to the Indian perspective, I think going into the third test, we were unsure who our spinner is going to be. And looking at the performance from Jadeja, the batter, I think we've got an answer now going forward into the rest of the series that Jadeja has to play, given that the pitches are not spinning. Now, some of you may think that Melbourne and Sydney might offer more spin, but we must, if we look at the recent matches, the Shield matches, they've on both the grounds, we've seen that these pitches have offered more seam and more assistance to the fast bowlers as opposed to the spinners. So I see just the same combination from both the sides. So one spinner at best. So I see Jadeja playing as the all-rounder. Now the other option was if we had a bowling all-rounder. Now the problem with Nitish Reddy is that he's also a batting all-rounder. Now given the balance that we have, what we saw in the third test, what I felt was that we were a bowler light, and I mean a fast bowler light. So Bumrah has bowled a lot of overs, and so has Siraj. In fact, he's carrying a niggle. Akashdeep is new. So I think looking at a current workload and just I think the impact that, over reliance that we have on Bumrah, I think we need to give him more breathing space by adding more teeth into the bowling. And the only way I see that is if we can add a fast bowler, and it could be a Harshit Rana instead of Nitish Reddy. I know Nitish Reddy has batted really well, but I think Jadeja pips him as a number 7 batter in this team. And Jadeja, I know he wasn't at his best as a bowler, but I think we know that he can contribute with the ball. And if you look at Nathan Lyon on the other side, who is also a world-class bowler, he really hasn't had much impact because the pitches really have been too fast bowler friendly, if I can call it that. So I think that is becoming clearer. We saw that in each of the test matches, India were, confused who the spinner should be. So I think if you're going to play just the one spinner, which I think should be the case, at least for Melbourne, we will see Jadeja, and then we'll probably see 4 fast bowlers, and Nitish Reddy, unfortunately, will have to sit out. Now, of course, he's batted really well. I think going forward, he might bat at number 7 in home test, especially wherein we need more spinners, and he could just be the second fast bowler who just bowls a few overs. But overseas, I think Jadeja has to play. So that's that from an Indian perspective. Now, if I were to look at Australia, I think there are some questions which need to be answered. I think one is if you look at their openers, the top 3, I saw a stat somewhere that they're averaging 24 this year, which is the lowest ever in this century, and I think it's older than. This record is like a new low of sorts in the last 100 years or something like that. I think it was in the 19th century, 1890s or something, that the top 3 had this kind of a record. So, yeah. So the point is, I think their openers are short on confidence. McSweeney is a debutant. I think he's had a torrid time. I don't know if they look to make changes going into the last 2 crucial tests. Maybe there talks that Sam Qantas might be considered, but looking at the way this setup functions, that may have to wait for another test. I think McSweeney might get one test at Melbourne, and if he doesn't get runs, then possibly Qantas could open in in Sydney, the last test. And also there are question marks around Khwaja as well. He hasn't got runs, so there are some problems there for Australia to ponder over. In terms of bowling, so we know that Hazelwood is out, but they're lucky. Australians are lucky to have Scott Boland in their ranks. So I don't think that's going to be a huge impact. Although Hazelwood, I think, is still a notch above Boland with his accuracy and the kind of bounce that Hazelwood generates. But I think Boland has also troubled India before. I think the way to tackle Boland is to attack him. So I think India will have to think about that, how they wish to bat in the next test match against him, because yeah, that's going to be an important aspect. And I think the other coming back to the Australian perspective, the other important element is that Mitch Marsh is not fully fit. So there is a lot of, I wouldn't say pressure, but there's a lot of onus on Cummins and Stark and now Scott Boland to share the workload. So Mitch Marsh, he just bowled a couple of overs in the last match, and also he didn't bowl much in the other matches too. I think in the first test, it was just the first innings where he got a decent bowl, but not significant enough overs. And I think he's not fully fit. So I think that's something for Australia to worry. So I think from an Indian standpoint, the way I see it is for the first 20, 30 overs, just take the shine off the new ball. Don't worry about the runs. Just tire them out. Get Stark or Cummins to bowl long spells and let us get into their third or fourth spells in Melbourne, and that's going to help us, especially as we go into the fifth test. So yeah, those were the key, I think, thoughts that I had. And by the way, I think I'll create a separate episode for R. Ashwin. I think he's a legend. Really sad to hear that he retired. I mean, it was a surprise to everyone, and it's really sad to see a player of his stature calling time in the middle of the series. So I'll create a separate episode on